Before we jump into today's episode of Dallas Mavericks Today, Jeffrey Cooperstein, Harrison Graham here. We wanted to have you guys weigh in on the show. We've kind of hit the dog days of the offseason. There's still some rumors, occasional news that drops, but Coop, things certainly are fairly slow between now and training camp. So we wanted to open it up to you guys. What show ideas do you have? What topics do you want us to hit? If there's some good ideas down in the comment section, maybe we'll explore those on a future episode.
Yeah, basically, we only have Luka playing in the FIBA World Cup, and that's the only actual basketball action that's happening right now. If you guys want us to talk about that, we will. If you want us to talk, if you want us to talk about some more trade targets, maybe some rumors surrounding the Mavs, let us know. But please drop your suggestions in the comments, and we'll take a look at some of the best ones and maybe implement them on future shows.
And if you have outside-the-box ideas, stuff we don't normally do, we're certainly open to that as well. We can't promise we're going to do that, but we want our audience to have input on some shows. So let us know what you're feeling. If you want a mailbag episode, let us know. We can work those back in as well. Get your comments in, and we'll go ahead and jump on into today's show. It is Mavericks Today, and there's a trade idea out there around Xavier Tillman as a potential target for the Dallas Mavericks. Coop, we of course know that forward position is fairly thin on this roster right now, with really Maxi Kleber and Grant Williams as the only two capable bodies. I guess you could throw Olivier Maxence Prosper in there because he's more of a 3-4 than a 2-3. But maybe a potential front court addition in Tillman we can certainly explore here on today's show.
Yeah, he'll be an unrestricted free agent after next season. He kind of signed one of those Jalen Brunson deals out of college where he got 4 guaranteed years in exchange for being a UFA. And when I was looking at his basketball reference page, he actually was listed as a 5 last year. So I guess he played some amount of 5. He's 6'8", 245, so that's a little small for a center. And I think the Mavericks have plenty of center options. They probably have too much, especially since JaVale McGee is currently on the roster right now. But it's interesting that he has versatility on that end, and he's also a versatile defender.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I'm guessing he played more 5 last year because Steven Adams missed a decent amount of time, and they like playing Jaren Jackson at the 4, so Memphis might have worked him in more at that 5. You look at the front court options the Grizzlies do have. It's crowded. They could move a guy like Xavier Tillman, especially if a guy like Jake LaRavia takes another step, someone who can be a stretch 4 type. He was inconsistent as a rookie, but they obviously have Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson, Brandon Clark's been a good player for them. So he's kind of like their 4th or 5th guy in that rotation right now in that front court. Whereas,
Kenneth Lofton, too. I love Kenneth Lofton.
G League MVP this year, or Rookie of the Year, whatever it was.
Yeah, MVP.
He had a really good season. And Xavier Tillman could potentially play more for Dallas because they need some guys who can play 4, and he could give you some small ball 5 minutes, especially in lineups where you need to kind of play 5 out sometimes, which is something he can do a little bit.
Yeah, and when his minutes went up, his numbers went up as well. If you look at the most minutes he played was last season, and that was his best season where he averaged 7 and 5 and 61.4% from the field. He gets it done mostly in the paint, a lot of his scoring, and he's also one of those guys that you can just kind of stick in the paint on defense, and he can kind of roam around and just guard whoever comes into the paint. Yeah. So he's a guy that intrigues me. Yeah, I got to be honest.
He's been kind of a glue guy for Memphis too. Like they've kind of had some roster turnover in the last couple of years, and he has still kind of found his way in that rotation. But again, they are getting a little crowded in that front court, and he is a guy that brings some energy, especially on the defensive side of the floor. So I certainly like that. I mean, if you told me you brought in a guy like this and he would give you 7 points and 5 rebounds like he did last year, I would absolutely sign up for that for 20-ish minutes per game potentially off the bench.
And the Mavs could probably get him for nothing. They do have that trade exception that they got from Oklahoma City with Davis Bertans. So if you could just assume him into that, the Mavs can basically get him for free. Or if the Grizzlies are dumb enough to take on JaVale McGee as well, you could also get him for that probably.
Would you throw one of your seconds for him?
If it was McGee, yeah, I would. If it was McGee
in a second for Tillman?
Yeah, if you didn't want to get rid of the draft pick, I would also just do it for this trade exception. I mean, I think he's a guy that could help the Mavs.
Yeah, and this trade exception, I mean, with him fitting in there, I mean, probably about as good of a caliber player as you're going to get with that level of a trade exception if you're not offering other picks involved. So, yeah, I mean, if Memphis is open to moving him, if they kind of come to the conclusion, like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign him after this year. Just, they just gave Desmond Bane a huge deal. John Morant's on a max. So, obviously, they have to pick and choose who they're going to keep around.
When you're at this point in the offseason, you kind of have to find those value plays that you can find on the market to try to upgrade your roster.
This would be one of those.
And I think Tillman would provide some value.
Yeah, let us know. Grade Xavier Tillman as a player. He's like, without looking at 2K, he's probably like a 74, I would guess.
Right around there.
Decent role player.
Not going to light the world on fire.
He can spot start if you need him to, but for this team, he would certainly come off the bench. He can play some 4, he can play some 5. At 245, he's fairly thick at 6'8", so he can, beef it up a little bit with those, with some 5s. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to contain Joel Embiid, but neither is really anybody else. So he's a guy that gives you some energy, some versatility, some defensive prowess, and had a career year offensively last year as well. Okay, let's talk about that center position. Kind of a good transition here, Coop. Unclear, right? Let's just assume they go with the trio they have right now of Richaun Holmes, Dwight Powell, and Dereck Lively. I don't think there is a clear-cut answer on who the starting center is. I think Jason Kidd will probably mix and match early in the season, try some different lineups. But some betting odds have dropped on who is most likely to be the starting center. We'll take a look at that here in just a moment. But if you want to join the family, hit that subscribe button here at Dallas Mavericks Today. We're asking you guys what type of shows you want us to do.
We want to know what the people want. We want to give it to the people.
Exactly. The whole point of this is to deliver the audience what they're looking for. So subscribe, give us your input. We're always reading the comments, and we appreciate everyone who supports the show. Let's get to 25,000 subscribers. Now, this is pretty interesting, Coop.
That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Clint Capela, minus 120 odds to be the Mavs starting center. So,
according to our friends at BetUS, you can go to chatsports.com/MFFL, use promo code MFFL.
Is this one of those things where they know something we don't, or they're just trying to get people to bite? Because
that's what
I'm wondering here. Because sportsbooks will occasionally do things like this where they're like, oh, there's been a lot of Capela buzz, minus 120. And then, people on those sites are like, oh, they know something. Like, let's get it before it's, minus 500 or something like that.
It's interesting for sure. I'm not sure what to make of it other than that we know that the Mavs have been linked to Capela. I think we've talked about it every week on this show for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So if Capela's the opening night starting center, I think you'd be very happy. But right now, we don't know.
I'd be thrilled. You know what else I find interesting is, and if you put a gun to my head and said, who do you think will start opening night, you have to get the correct answer right. I probably would guess Dwight Powell. I know you and I have had Holmes as the starter, but just knowing kind of how Kidd rolls, like, I think he would make Richaun Holmes earn that. He knows what he has in Dwight Powell. But I still find it a bit surprising that Powell is plus 135 odds to start at center, and Holmes is all the way down there at plus 500. Like, that's a pretty big gap.
I just think Luka trusts Powell more at the end of the day, and that's kind of where the betting odds factor in, is that they have started games together, so he gets the edge there.
Yeah, but so as far as Capela goes, though, Coop, like, that's very interesting, and, not to beat a dead horse, like, he would be equally as good X's and O's fit with Luka, but just a higher caliber player.
He's just a better player, and we've been beating a dead horse, like you said. The Mavs just need to go out and get this deal done. I know a lot of it's predicated on what happens with Pascal Siakam over there in Toronto. It sounds like he's on the verge of getting moved over there.
Yeah, there was a new update that Siakam, a trade could be getting closer, so we'll see if that happens.
So, yeah, we'll see if that happens. It would be nice to have Capela. Obviously, if Dwight Powell's the starting center on opening night, I don't know if I would say the offseason was a failure, but it wasn't a complete offseason, to say the least. Yeah. Because Dwight Powell, he signed the 3-year to $12 million deal, right? So $4 million a season.
That's not a starting center.
He's not a starting center. He's a 15-minute-a-game center is what he is. If you just take a look at the stats, 6.7 points, 4.1 rebounds. I'm kind of tired of seeing Dwight Powell in the starting lineup, but it's not the end of the world, I guess.
Also, how close are we getting to that 60-day deal for Richaun Holmes? I think we're over halfway there. Because I think that deal became official like July 6th. So we're over a month into it. So let's just call it 35 days. I think it might be like 32, 33. I mean, if you get involved in that Siakam trade, it's very possible Holmes could be in that deal where it just doesn't go through officially until the 60 days wraps up. So there could be a scenario where your center rotation is Capela and Powell, and then Lively eventually is your backup, hopefully later in the season. But early on, he's playing some in Frisco. He's occasionally getting some run, but you kind of roll with Capela for 30, 32 minutes a game and Powell for the rest, and that's kind of what you got.
Yeah, if you get Capela for 32 minutes a game, I think you have a pretty decent center rotation there, especially you can split the minutes between Powell, between Lively, whoever else.
Kleba can occasionally
even Maxi
play some
Kleba as
small
well,
ball
yeah.
five. Yeah.
I think Kleba will get some minutes at the 5 too, especially in closing like we talked about on our lineups video a couple of videos ago. I think he is going to be the closer at the 5 just because of the versatility he offers. So the Mavs do have options at center. None of them are fantastic at the moment, and I think Capela is the best option, and that kind of reflects in those betting odds.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Minus 120. That's just to flash it one more time here. It's interesting. It's
That's
very
all I'm saying.
interesting. And did you see these odds on Wednesday or when did
This
you?
was today is Thursday. I saw them Tuesday.
Okay. I wonder if that stems from the Siakam report.
It might. It definitely might. We'll see.
I don't know. Something's in the air here. Who will be the opening night starting center? If you guys had to predict it for us, go ahead and do so in the comments section. I think if no trade happens, I do think it'll be Dwight Powell. But man, if it's Clint Capela, it's full steam. I'll put it this way, Coop. You get Clint Capela, like my expectations are like you need to be a top 5 seed in the West, and you need to at minimum win at least a round.
Are we planning the parade through Uptown?
I don't know if I'm going that far, but like Capela on this team.
It makes them significantly
gives
better.
you an equal, if not higher, ceiling to the team that made the conference finals, which I think we agree that team overachieved a bit.
They did.
Getting to the conference finals, but I think on paper this team could actually be better if you get Capela.
Yeah, if you get Capela, I think championship is the ceiling for this team, especially when you have Luka, who's playing like he is right now, and I think he's going to come into the season in shape. Sounds like Kyrie's on a mission as well, wanting to prove some people wrong about his past and what's happened in the last 3-4 years or so. Could be very exciting if they get Capela.
Could be the final piece. We'll have to wait and see what happens. He's Jeffrey Cooperstein. I'm Harrison Graham.
Don't forget to drop us your suggestions.
Yes, please do. We're going to be reading the comments. We'll pin that as the comment so you don't forget. You can either reply there, just litter the comments overall. So please do so, and maybe your show idea will be a future episode of Mavericks Today.